Should be nice to get away. All right, we're live.
Yeah, long overdue.
Oh, 100%. Especially with everything that's just life, right? And COVID. And,
yeah. Yep.
Well, good morning, Aaron. We're live. First time couple of weeks now.
Yeah, been a long time, and just haven't been able to. I mean, we had some sickness. I mean, you were not feeling well, and then we had some travel. It was just like, oh, geez. But yeah, good to get back in the driver's seat. It was real interesting. Brett Henry, I have to give a shout out to Brett Henry down at Wilbur Vaults. He was emailing me, and certainly, and then I have to first say, our thoughts and prayers go out to those that are down in Texas, dealing with the weather that they're dealing with. But Brett had reached out to me and was telling me about, we were exchanging some books, and we were talking about learning through reading, which is the way that he coined it. And I love the way that he coined that, because it is what it is. I think you go through school and you go through college and you read books and you listen to lectures and you feel like you're done. But that's not really the finish line. You should always be in a continual state of learning. And Brett is of that, and Brett is a follower of our chats and our books. So real nice when you get that feedback of us discussing our books and being learners through books. And I think that's great. So I have to give a shout out to him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad it's reaching people and they're taking something from it.
Yeah. Yep.
So
exactly.
All right. We were just actually kind of joking around. We've been off a while. We're trying to refresh on where we were. So
I'm actually turning the book right now. I'm gonna close my door here. Give me a second. Yeah, I can't remember when the last time it was that we discussed. What, about a month?
Yeah, it has to be. It feels like it, that's for sure. So, all right. Well, you want me to read the first page here quick?
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush toward the danger. They put their own interests aside to protect us or to pull us into the future. Leaders would sooner sacrifice what is theirs to save what is ours. And they would never sacrifice what is ours to save what is theirs. This is what it means to be a leader. It means they choose to go first into danger, head first toward the unknown. And when we feel sure they will keep us safe, we will march behind them and work tirelessly to see their visions come to life and proudly call ourselves their followers. So part 6, chapter 21. So the destructive abundance, lead the people, not the numbers.
Yeah, this is interesting because, and then I tend to feel like this is not as big of an issue with smaller companies as it is with bigger companies, but it's something as you grow, as you get bigger, as your mindset changes, you lose focus on what really matters, and that is your people. Your people become numbers. And, I think the same could be said about your customers. Your customers are probably going to grow faster than your workforce. Mm-hmm. But end of the day, you lose that focus on what really matters, and that's the human interaction, the human element of this world that we live in. You just start associating people with numbers. And if you bounce to slide number 4 there, you can kind of see there was a tall tale example, which was Jack Welch, who was the famed CEO of GE, and he's actually a quite a motivating speaker.
Yes.
But from a business side of things, GE was heavily focused on Jack Welch's way of running things, and that was to balance the success of the stock and of the shareholders, holding that paramount over people. And so it was very common that layoffs were just a very common way to balance the books. And that was a business mindset that, I'll be honest. It was something that we put into place in my previous career. And I believe, still happens daily. You look at your numbers and you're like, well, geez, Q3 was down. Well, let's lay off 10 people to balance it back out in Q4. That was the way of thinking. And it blows your mind to think that way, but that was just the way things were done. And that was kind of the Jack Welch's model of business, which is interesting, very interesting. So it becomes a great way to make your company look presentable, to look good. It's a way to make the numbers look right. But end of the day, it isn't really sustainable. And I think you could see that, specifically there's a statistic that shows page 219, you can kind of see the growth of two companies, Costco and GE. We'll touch on Costco in a minute here, but you can see that the growth towards what we have now in the 2000s, it's not sustainable. People generally want to gravitate towards companies that they want to work for, that they're happy to work for, versus those that are just concerned about the bottom line, those that are concerned about the numbers themselves.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
And to be honest, I can't take anything away from Jack Welch, because Jack Welch, certainly is a very successful person, did phenomenal things in the business world. But I think Simon makes a very ballsy comment in his book, which is really, really cool. But he says that anyone could run a business in the 90s, and that was very true. Anyone could run a business. If you could turn a light switch on and you could sell a product, whatever widget it was, you could. In the 90s, it was easy. Now you have issues these days. Let's just take COVID away. But in the 2000s, you have, your workforces are changing. People have different ways of feeling how they want to work, how they want to go to work. You have different markets. Mindsets are changing, buying patterns are changing. In the 2000s, it was actually quite difficult to have a successful business. We always hear, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, good help is hard to find. Well, maybe it's because the 90s culture bled into the 2000s and we never thought about changing that mindset, changing the way that we think about our labor to make our products. So, there's some things to think about there.
Yeah, I don't know where I feel on his statement to that, because I think we'll get into the next decade, right, in 2020 to 2030. And what we can easily look back and then say, well, from 2000 to 2010, or 2000 to 2020, anybody could sell something, right? It was easy. Like you could pretty much take and go a decade or 2 decades and then look back and say something, because you hit it on the head. It's a cultural difference, right? Every, let's say, 20 years, you're getting a complete changeover in the style of workforce and the way technology changes. I mean, in 20 years, technology changes dumb, right? I mean, we can't comprehend what that is. So I get what he's saying, but I don't know. It's tough, because in the 90s, it may look easier because you didn't have the internet as much, right? You didn't have the online businesses, the social media that's a part of it now, that puts more smaller people in the realm of being able to sell big items, right? Because Amazon, right? I mean, the way the distribution is, you don't have to have 100,000 or 1 million square foot, distribution center to start a business, to have supply or your widget or whatever, right? Like, you could physically do that on the internet and just shift and change. So I think some of that comes from, we say that now because we don't see what's coming down the road, right? Like, right now could be a way easier time to sell something than it will be 12 years from now. I don't, or at least that statement will be made, right?
No, I think you're right, and it's so easy to criticize on stuff that's already happened in the past versus what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future. I mean, I guarantee you, when Jeff Bezos sat down with the ground floor of Amazon, he never thought it would grow into what it is today. He had an idea on how to exchange books. Now it's fundamentally shifted into how we buy groceries.
Yeah,
and so to think that's going to happen back when you have that original idea, it takes an awful lot of insight. It almost makes you wonder if these guys had time travel machines and could go into the future and then come back with their idea and think that it's going to work. But yeah, it is. And you don't know what Jack Welch had to deal with back in the 90s. There could be some outside forces that he had to deal with that made him think the way that he did. You don't know that. Fundamentally, nobody knows that. Only Jack Welch knows that. Maybe there's some things that he didn't bring out to the public knowledge. So yes, that is, it's a very, like I said, it's a very ballsy statement because it can be looked at both ways. Was business good in the 90s? Oh, hell yeah, it was good in the 90s.
Yep.
But it is also, easier to make that statement from the future perspective versus the past.
Yep.
What interests me the most, I think, and I've had a lot of time to think about this, is that whole labor aspect and why labor is so hard to find. And that's something that I think just, I don't have the answer to it. I really don't. I wish I did. But I think when we look at it and even look at it coming into the future, we know the way things are going. We can see that right now. Things are more of a handheld nature. They're more of a mobile nature. They're quick. They're fluid. But I don't see a lot of people taking the time and the effort to put forth changes to help that versus just sitting back and saying, well, we have to do things the way that they've been done for such a long time because they've always worked. So I see more of that versus let's get our hands dirty. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get our hands dirty. I was on a conference call earlier today, and we were talking about education in industry, in the precast industry, and we were discussing that we may have to have a webinar on how to use simple hand tools and simple carpentry tools. And, in one aspect, you can think to yourself, God, what kind of a world are we living in when I got to teach somebody how to use a hammer? Okay, I understand that, but I also understand that, hey, we do have to have a webinar on how to use a hammer. That's just the way it is. Okay, that's what it is now. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a little bit more work. Yeah, a little bit, but we can use that technology to our advantage to make it easier. Film it on YouTube. That way, it lives in the world forever. I don't know. I digress a little bit, but I think the more that we do things about it now, the better off we're going to be in the future versus sitting around and complaining that, it's just not happening, not working.
It's an age old issue, right? As technology changes, I look at it as trying to mold water, right? You can't mold water. Water is going to do what it wants. So you have to just give to it and flow with it, right? You can direct it here and there, but you can't mold it. You can't shape it the way you want it, right? You have to flow with it and adapt with it. And that's what I look at as the interface between technology and the workforce, right? Because technology is shaping the up and coming workforce, and the people leading the workforce at the moment tend to be people that didn't grow up with the technology, I guess, right? Because I don't want to put an age barrier there, because my kids now, by the time they go to lead, will not have grown up necessarily with the technology that'll be getting used when you're in my age, right? So it's an age old thing. It happens to everybody, and the sooner we can adapt to it, and I'm not saying just give in, right? Don't sink and drown, but find the flow, find things and be open to the way, technology can be utilized, and not say, well, this is done. This is, technology. We didn't use this back when I was coming up, right? We brute force plowed through it. Well, that's just not the way it is anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it the best, but you got to find the flow, because it is different. It's different in different regions, different workforce environments, different job settings, whether you're a landscaper or a precast manufacturer, whatever. There's a lot of differences, and you do have to just find that flow. And there is no silver bullet for, one shoe fits everything.
Yep.
But if you're not willing to do the work, then you're not going to change. You're not going to get any better. If you're not willing to do the work, you're just going to throw your hands up and say, is what it is. then it is what it is. It's never going to get any better. So, but it's interesting because I see that more and more, and it boggles my mind that you just don't see people willing to try to work on the problem to find the solution, which is just foolish. I think it's just absolutely foolish.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Slide 5, we go to the Costco versus Walmart example. Costco is a company that is very prideful on their people. They talk about the options that they give to people. They give people paths to success. Everything is very clear. They care about their people. There's not massive layoffs versus Walmart's example is more of a turn and burn mentality. Mm-hmm. And the statistics that are given in the book basically state to the fact that if employees love their businesses, their customers will too. If I go to a place that people are excited to work, they're all a part of the same team. There's not those comments like, oh, welcome to hell, or another same shit, different day kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Those are people that just tend to not care. Those that you go into and they're like, hey, welcome to our facility. This is great. We're doing this over here. This is awesome. Jerry's over here working on this. Matt's over here working on this. This is great. We got a lot of good activity. Then I'm going to be excited about buying your product or using your service. It's an appearance thing. It's an image thing. It's just the same as, if you show up to a job with a rusty old beat up pickup truck to give a quote, homeowner is not probably going to be all that excited about you. But if you pull up with the brand new, whether you're Chevy Ford, brand new Chevy Ford pickup, your name is written nicely on the door. My image of you is that you're well put together. It's probably going to give me a very honest quote. I'm not going to judge your appearance. Okay. So that's what that's stating. Yeah. Customers that are companies that are number focused, will they be successful? Yes, they will, but they will not be able to weather storms very well. Like I said, in the past slide, that their ultimate solution for every problem is layoffs, which in the interim looks great because your numbers are balanced. But then you have to, when things do come back, you're going to have to backfill those positions that you gave up, and that's the hard part. That's where you're going to start losing, and that's not often thought about. The short-term solution is not the long-term gain. That's been said numerous times. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, you're giving up. It's customer service, right? I mean, that's the ultimate loss in this statement is when you do the turn and burn. When you walk into one of those companies or one of those businesses or storefronts or whatever, when customer service isn't there, right? Because the people don't care because they were, they know that a potential turnover is just around the corner, right? Yeah, so that's what I see is it's just a giant flashing customer service nightmare, and
exactly
when the buying experience is horrible, you just don't make it. You eventually can't do it anymore.
Yeah. There's a very, very good statement here on page 222, about halfway through. It says, whereas people go to work for Walmart because they want a job, people go to Costco because they want a future and a sense of belonging to a team. And that's exactly what we're saying here.
Yeah. That's Costco is today's Google, right? Or whatever. You pick some of those tech companies that were famous for, what they would do around the office. Now, there are some backstories to some of that, right? About expectations of workload to whatever, but the idea was to make it as comfortable at work as possible that you would want to still be there. But
yeah. So the last slide there, slide 6, or second to last slide, I should say. How can we help from a standpoint of how you can help from your own business? There's this picture that's on 223. It's a very good picture, and I think it says a lot with a little bit of detail, and that's you have to empower those that are in the circle of safety closest to the danger, those have to be the ones that have the power, because they're the ones that are the boots on the ground, taking the grenades in the trenches, if you will. But there also has to be a direct line of command going up to the top. If one person is outside of that chain and you break that chain, and one person doesn't know who to report to what and doesn't know where to go with what, you lose that focus and you lose that sense of credibility. And then I think you also just damage the whole entire wholehearted vision of the company. Yes. So you have to have one leadership by the people on the ground. You have to have that leadership. You have to empower. You have to train the people to do what they need to do. Help your people before the numbers. This goes way back to when our first conversation of being human, empathy, getting the right people on the bus, all of those principles, just being a human being and treating your people as if they are human and not just a number. That cannot be stated enough. That cannot be more important from a business ownership side of things than ever. You have to treat your people like people, not numbers.
Yeah.
And I think you have to show people the path. I mean, you may not be in a position where you can show people a growth path. You may not be in that position. It takes a lot of stability from a company to be able to show people a path to success or a path to improvement. But very simply, you have to show them a path of what they need to do and who they need to report to make things very clear. People don't like gray areas. People don't like questions. You have to make things as clear as possible. And then as you grow, show them how they can grow to be successful. Show them how they can be a leader. Show them how they can become a branch manager, stuff like that. You have to be very clear and transparent about this. That's how people get excited about their jobs.
And yes, and so I want to jump back on both of those. The show the path, help your people before the numbers, is that your number one for I want to be careful because we've been talking about Costco and Walmart and all that, and I want to bring this back down into our industry, right? And the people that we help, is that your people are the greatest asset to your bottom line, right? And it's a cliche statement, but when your people care, in production, when your people care, it's a direct implication on the quality that goes out the door, or the excitement when presenting it to a customer, right? So if your people feel that they've got, that you as the company have their back and that you support them and all that happy stuff, they're excited. They take the extra time to look over that product before it leaves, or they're taking the extra time to care about how to service the customer. It's not just an invoice number, right? It's I don't know. For me, in growing up in this industry, though, my whole career, that is a big deal, because the numbers will always come. If the people care, if your people know that they're loved, they will make sure that the numbers are there, because they want the growth then for the company just as much as you do, if not more.
Yeah.
And then with that, it's easy. The path is easy, right? Because as you grow and as those people care, they then care to develop themselves. They take the time to develop themselves to be better for the company that's putting the time in for them. And then as that growth happens, the growth in the company, the growth in the people, the path is, you don't even have to, it evolves itself, right? Like, I don't know. It seems very elementary, but it's very hard in practice to get past some of the pitfalls that occur. But yes. Anyways.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is very simple in nature. I mean, ultimately what it boils down to is that everybody has to get on board with the message that you're trying to portray. And if you have a hard time doing that, then people aren't going to get on board. But things will suffer. It is very easy, but it is also very hard, because it's very hard sometimes to portray what that message is. There's a lot of things that go into play there. I mean, there's human actions, human emotions, what that person really wants to get out of their job. There's a ton of stuff out there. But the more that you can cut through it all, the better off you're going to be.
100%. And I mean, chapters prior to this where we've talked about the people and things like that. You got to be open to seeing the potential growth from people that you potentially wouldn't think, right? Or as like the show the path thing. A lot of times people get hung up and from here to here to here to here, and you got to be willing to look out across the landscape of people and say, wow, that guy's whatever, only 10 months in, and he's here every day. He's here 20 minutes early. He doesn't finish until X time, whatever the end time is. He doesn't actually stop physically working until that. And then he's here another 20 minutes after he's clean. Like just small things here and there that he's putting in that time, or she's putting in that time, going above and beyond without the ask, and doing it with a smile, right? Actually enjoying that they're there. That's the other side of it. If you're gonna show a path and you're gonna grow people, don't be afraid to grow people that maybe aren't seen, they have the seniority, right? But they have the attitude and they have the work ethic. And I mean, it goes back to chapters where we've gotten on soapboxes on this, but again, when you help the people and you look at it that way, that path of where people can go becomes easier to see. But then finding the people that should go up that path, you got to take a second and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Anyways,
100% right. I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's I just finished another book. It was Crucial Conversations, and it's amazing sometimes whether it's crucial conversations or running a business that we ourselves as people just get in our own way because we're afraid of the outcome. We're afraid to show people certain things. We're afraid of what they're going to, how they're going to grow. It comes down to just humanality, of just being a human, and not being afraid. It blows my mind how many of these similar topics just kind of circle around. And they're always there. We don't ever think about them. We don't want to think about them.
Yep. I can't add anything.
No, there's not much to add to it. I think it's exactly what we say it is. I think you can't slice it any other way.
No, and you said it earlier, there's no magic bullet, right? Like it's trial and error. It's owning up to being able to accept that maybe you don't have all the answers, right? And that's why I love help the people one. There's just so much that comes from that, right? Because if people enjoy what they're doing, if people enjoy being there, they're going to bring opportunity for change, adjustments, tweaks that are from a different point of view that you may not have ever seen, and things grow tenfold from that, right? So just being able to be open to acceptance of other ideas and thoughts, and I don't know, that help your people before the numbers is just it really recaps. I mean, really, obviously the books we've done so far all kind of have that common theme that we've talked about here in the past, but people really enjoy what they do, really enjoy getting up in the morning and coming to that facility, their place of work, right? Life gets to be pretty easy overall. The problems that seem big aren't necessarily as big as they are.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
We haven't been on for a while, so it's good to get on the soapbox. There's a lot to be said.
So up next, what are we looking at?
We are shifting gears. It's called The Abyss is the next section. And chapter 22 is at the center of all of our problems is us. So this is very much in line, I believe, to what we've been talking about. just being human. The problem is essentially us and our own pride and what have you. It is us that is the problem. So
get in our own way. Worst enemy.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. So
awesome. Well, I think we're good, right? No, are you back? Because you're going on vacation, so now I can't remember. Is it this week?
Yeah, I'm back on. I'm on vacation, but I'll be back on Sunday, so I'm good for a Monday chat.
Perfect. We'll get 2 in a row. Holy moly!
Back on track. Wheels got to get on sooner or later.
That's right. All right, Aaron. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you next
Thank
Monday.
you. Yep, sounds good. We'll see you.